Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we explore the strengths we have because of our sensitivity and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there. To the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers, welcome. How the heck are ya? This episode today, I'm going to be sharing some personal experiences and things that are going on. The overall theme, though, is how we learn to develop self-trust, how we navigate through challenges, and the gifts that we bring to situations, and also how we often have an inner perspective of how we're doing or how we show up in the world, yet other people have a really different perspective. So it's just going to be a compilation of some different things that have been going on that I've been navigating through, but also reflecting and seeing how some of these changes have happened. And it's interesting. I was looking back I did an episode last year, I don't know, around December or January of 2021, talking about, I thought I had seasonal affective disorder because I really struggled over the holidays. And typically in December, I struggle. It's really interesting. This last year really did not have that. And I've been really thinking a lot about what the shift is. And I honestly think it's because I've been paddling consistently. Last year around this time, I was paddling by myself and it was cold and it was foggy and I just had a really hard time getting out there. It's been cold for San Diego, 50 degrees in the morning. It's cold to get on the water. But because I have people that I paddle with, it's made it much easier. And on the days that I don't paddle and I have a plan to, I've just learned to really be okay with it. And I think that not only the consistency, exercise calms my nerves, it just takes the edge off. I feel better. But I think the consistency of paddling regularly, having people to paddle with has really made a difference. And if you listen to earlier episodes, I talk about, all the friendship wounds that I was going through, and especially early on in the podcast, how often I felt left out and not invited and not included, and how easily I got my feelings hurt. And over time, I've really developed some incredibly strong friendships with people, and I can show up no matter how I'm feeling, and I don't have to withdraw and pull back. And I think that sense of community has really been helpful. If that's something that you don't have, you might consider taking the next online HSP course. We just started one, so the next one's not going to be until the springtime sometime. I think HSPs need to have community. We need to have people who get us. We need to have activities that we love that help us to thrive. Anyways, so let me step back a little bit. For Christmas, both of my twin boys came home. They'll be 22 in May. And because they work in the public and my husband and I are pretty conservative in what we do, we did rapid testing when they got home, and they live a few hours away. They weren't able to get their hands on rapid tests before they left. And I thought, what do I do if they test positive? Do I have the heart to turn them away? Fortunately, they both tested negative and it was fine. Now, every time one of my sons, Daniel, comes home, he sneezes. He's got these allergy attacks. I don't know what it is. And so, of course, he had this time as well, but we didn't think anything of it. We spent a couple days together. One son was only able to be here for Christmas Eve, and he had to go home Christmas Day. He left his dog, so I'll tell you a little bit about that. But we spent a couple days with Daniel and we got him some Zyrtec, and it didn't clear up his stuffiness. We went to the zoo. We all wore masks, and we got some nachos with jalapenos. And Daniel said, these aren't very strong. And I had them and they were strong. When we came home, we did a rapid test. He tested positive. We did another test. He tested positive. So we had him quarantined in his room. He was not happy about that. My husband was supposed to leave for Laughlin in a few days, but because he was exposed, he had to postpone his trip. I'm jumping a little bit ahead of myself. The next morning, we went up to the Naval Hospital and we sat in the car in line for 2 hours so all three of us could get PCR tests. This was Wednesday. They said if the results were positive, they would call us. On Friday afternoon, we got our results. Daniel was positive. Steve was negative. I was negative. I was having symptoms. So Daniel ended up driving home to his apartment, and then I sanitized his room and the front bathroom, and then I quarantined because I wasn't feeling well. I took a rapid test. My PCR test was negative. I don't know. It cleared up. I don't know what it was. But as a result of this, My husband postponed his trip to Laughlin. It was quite tumultuous. It was just a rough time. I do have to say it was really kind of nice to just have a couple of days to just chill out and stay in the room and just rest, which is what I needed. Things have been very, very busy, even though I took 2 weeks off the week, I think, of Christmas and the week of New Year's with launching the online HSP course. I'm in the process of writing a book right now. There were so many other things going on. So while I didn't have time with clients, and I love meeting with my clients, I don't feel like I really got a break. The podcast needed some episodes, and it just felt like there was stuff constantly going on. So I am going to need to rethink that for the future about how to navigate that. And I'm sharing that with you because sometimes we have the best intentions of taking a break, but I just didn't think things through, even though every year this goes on. And for some reason, it was different this year. Anyways, as an aside, my son Josh left his dog Zeke with us for the week so he could do some traveling. Y'all know I love Gracie. Gracie's the sweetest dog in the world. However, she's a very high maintenance dog. And recently she's had some thyroid issues. And when we increase her thyroid medication, we need to watch her seizure medication. I think I talked about this with Jen. She's now on, I think we give her 9 pills a day, 2 syringes of medication. We give her medication 5 times a day, 5 a.m., 7 a.m., 1 p.m., which is a killer for going out and doing things, 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. It's a lot of work. So having a young dog that's 2 years old, Zika's a medium-sized, kind of a shepherd husky mix, who sees and can catch a ball and can run and play and romp. It just was fun having him. And when I wasn't quarantining, I was taking him to Fiesta Island or Dog Park every day to get the energy out, making sure we walked him a lot. It really was lovely. And if you follow me on social media, on TikTok, I'm HSP Podcast. On Instagram, I'm Unapologetically Sensitive. But Steve came one day into the room when I was quarantining and I recorded it. And he said that I can get a dog. So I'm waiting for the perfect dog. It was easy having Zeke here, although we had to carry Gracie around the whole week because Zeke is so enthusiastic and his tail will whack her in the head and she can't see it coming. And he'd jump up on the bed and I kept her on my left side and him on my right because he could jump up and break her leg. He's a big puppy. So he has no awareness of her. So but the thought of having to find a dog and integrate a dog just feels overwhelming. So I trust that when the time is right, we will have the perfect dog to add to our family. But the video is very, very sweet. Anyways, with Steve going out of town, I've talked about this over the years on the podcast. And as a kid, I felt really lonely. My mom was a single parent. I was a latchkey kid. I was alone a lot at the time. I felt very lonely. I'm no shade to my mom. She did what she had to do. But I have this sense of like chronic loneliness and feeling bored and just wanting company, especially with COVID. My husband's been working from home for the last 2 years, and I have an office I go into when I do work. We don't really hang out a whole lot during the day, but there's something for me that's very comforting and very self-regulating about having Steve in the house. And I have a friend who lives in Canada, and we talk, I don't know, not every day, but every few days via Marco Polo. And I wasn't thinking about Steve going, which is probably one of my defenses, one of the many that I have. And I had reached out to my friend and I said, can you reflect to me, how do I do when he goes? Because if you listen to earlier episodes, and I'm not sure which ones they are, I talk about how, I called Steve and he didn't return my call. And I told a friend that I needed her support. She didn't return my call. And I got it really activated me. I have a lot of wounding. And back then my wounding got very activated. I don't know, who knows, it could get activated this time too, but I would move through it much quicker. So I asked my friend and she's like, you really do well when he's gone. This is the gift of having people in our lives who can kind of be memory keepers for us when we've got wounding and we can't remember how we really do. And I really do well when he's gone. It just means I have to stay more on top of things because he does the dishes every night and he keeps order in the house in some ways. He provides stability so I can be creative and do the things that I do. So I think it's easy for us to get stuck in these old narratives or have old things come up. And I think as we do our work and our healing, for me, I become more aware of the feelings that come up and get activated with that thought of being alone. I lived alone for years, so it's not that I don't know how to be alone, but it's a shift and it's a change. So what things come up for you that activate your history? And are you able to stay in the present moment? Or do you get stuck into an old narrative and you kind of miss that things have changed? And I think oftentimes we have these narratives or stories about how things have affected us, and we don't register that things are changing. And one of the places where I see this is, I've talked to you about paddling and going out in the ocean, and I did my first ocean paddle of the new year on Wednesday. I used my half of my little scopolamine patch and I put it on behind my ear. It was really cold. I really didn't want to go. And I'm so glad that I did. But going down the channel, it was incredibly choppy and rough. I remember two paddlers in front of me and I was paddling and it felt like I just wasn't going anywhere. And when we got to the end of the channel, one of the paddlers, knowing that I'm new, asked how it was. And I'm like, it was nervousing. That's not a word, but I like it, nervousing. And a couple times you could hear me going like, it's okay, you've got this. Then we did our ocean paddle. And there was a part of it that I really enjoyed. Again, if you follow me on social media, I posted, and you can see how the waves are just really rolling. We paddle out to a certain point. If you're in San Diego, it's about a little bit past where Belmont Park is in the roller coaster. And we just hung out there for a while. There was a dolphin that we watched. Oh my gosh, so incredible to watch this playful dolphin. Did not get any pictures of it, but it was just magic to watch. And we were talking as a group. And from my perspective, I feel like I've been very conservative about, I don't push myself going out to the ocean when I don't want to. Sometimes I meet the group, I paddle up the channel, and then I paddle around the bay. I've really honored where I'm at and how quickly or slow I feel like I'm going to go with my paddling. But I have this perspective that the group sees me as a big old chicken. And so when we got to the point where we just rested for a little bit on the ocean before we turned around, somebody made a comment about how well I was doing and that I've really just jumped in and embraced the paddling and, how competent I am. That's when I shared. I'm fine with how I am, but my perspective that everybody looks at me as being, the fearful chicken. And everybody said no. And it just was interesting. And later that morning, we do coffee in the parking lot. And somebody had said, without knowing what goes on with you internally, externally, you're very competent. You do a great job. And I think that this is something that happens so frequently for so many of us. And if we don't have these dialogues with people, we continue to run that narrative of, I'm just too cautious and I go too slow and I'm just a chicken. And so I think it's really important when we have safe people that we can have these conversations. And now my job is to really embrace what I heard them say and to drop my narrative about being a scared chicken. Right? The other thing is that heading back, I started to get a little seasick. So I keep these little ginger candies on me that I can pop in my mouth. And having done that long Dana Point paddle where I was seasick and had to paddle for an hour and 20 minutes in the ocean, not feeling well, I thought, I've got this. And we paddled down the channel and it was very, what I call hula hoopy, where just the back of my boat is kind of fishtailing a little bit around, but it was fine. I navigated it. And I know that I just need to keep doing this. And I came home and I told my husband, I have this love-hate relationship with the ocean. Part of it is just incredibly invigorating, the vastness, the motion. It's incredible. And there's another part of me that just doesn't like it. I like when it's flat and calm and peaceful. But it is fun. I've told you about when Brenda and I went out the channel and there were these swells and we were able to ride the swells back in. And she's like, do you want to do it again? I'm like, yeah. So for me, I have this love-hate relationship with things that are kind of exciting and a little scary and a little nervousing. What are the things in your life that you're wanting to do that are feeling nervousing to you? They could be social things. It could be learning something. It could be taking a risk and being vulnerable with your body, maybe dancing or singing or acting or improv. It's not uncommon for many of us to want to be in our heads and be very intellectual, and that's what play looks like. Sometimes, if it works, to loosen up a little bit and to do things that are more spontaneous and less planned. And it's funny, while my son and his girlfriend were here, they've done escape rooms before. And as much as I love problem solving, it really didn't sound like fun. And I had gone to bed early one night and everybody else stayed up. And my son texted me and said, hey, we're going to go to an escape room tomorrow. Do you want to go? And my thought was, I'm very ambivalent. It really doesn't sound like fun. Maybe I'll learn to play next year. And I texted him that and I did hashtag my mom's a drag. We just let it go. The next day we were talking and they wanted to go to the escape room and asked if I wanted to go. And again, I was incredibly ambivalent. Well, what you get when you have a a child whose parent is a therapist, my son asked me, like, what's the worst case scenario? What are you concerned about? And I said, you only get an hour and I don't do well under pressure. And my husband, to his credit, said, what if you went and you didn't have to you didn't have to play, you just observed so that the pressure wouldn't be there. And then my son said, and what's the other thing that you're concerned about? I'm like, that I'm going to be bored. So he's like, could you tolerate being bored for an hour? I'm like, yeah, I could do that. So we booked it. And all afternoon, I'm thinking, I really don't want to leave the house. I don't want to go. This feels really stupid. There was nothing in my mind that could imagine this was going to be fun, enjoyable. And I thought, if you invited me out for candy, I'm all in. Like, I can imagine candy. I love candy. Candy's fun. We were not going out for candy. However, we got there a little bit early and there was this cookie shop that was next door to where the escape room was. So we did get some cookies and some cream cheese frosting for dippers, and it was enjoyable. We went to the escape room. I really had a nice time. It was fun. I participated. I didn't have that sense of pressure. What I really appreciated is my son and his girlfriend did not get angry or uptight or worried about time. And we just really enjoyed the process. And I could see what was enjoyable about going to an escape room. And on the way back home, we were talking about it. I feel really vulnerable sharing this stuff. Well, I don't feel vulnerable sharing it with you, the listener, but I felt vulnerable sharing it with my son and his girlfriend about how there's nothing in my mind that could imagine, like, I'm going to have fun. Like, I wish that I had the type of brain that somebody offered to do something new that I'd never done. And I'm like, I'm all in. That sounds like a great time. Where my brain goes, I've got nothing to attach to it. It really doesn't sound like fun. I have to leave my comfortable house. I don't want to do it. But I know well enough to just show up and like Josh said, could I tolerate being bored for an hour? Been there, done that. I could do that. And I ended up having this really nice time. And I think more importantly than that, it was really nice to see how Josh and his girlfriend interacted, to see how the three of us interacted, having a new experience. I also wonder if there's something generational because, as y'all know, I'm 58. My mom was a single parent. We had food stamps when I was young. Things were very, very tight. So the thought of spending $35 for an activity for an hour was crazy. I can remember going to McDonald's was a huge deal because we hardly ever went out to eat. And I think this younger generation is really about activities and experiences where that is not how I grew up. So I think that's one of the things that I battle is it okay to spend $35 for an hour of an experience? And there's no value judgment in that. I just think that it's something different. So I'm curious, are you comfortable spending money on short experiences? Where do you value spending your money? So again, this is just how we walk through things that are difficult. And had I not had the openness or willingness to walk through this and, the grace of my son and my husband having input to be supportive instead of saying like, oh, you're such a drag mom. This is how we walk through new things in discomfort and we get more information. I normally paddle 3 times a week. Oh, we're segueing. Segue. And the paddling group is going back up to Dana Point this Saturday, and it's an all-day thing. I had already decided that I really didn't want to go. I'm not prepared to spend 3+ hours on the ocean. And then I remembered with Steve being gone and the dog needing as many pills that she needs and then having to come home and take care of the dogs, just too much. But I do want to get out and get a paddle. I've reached out to a number of people and nobody is available. So I've had to kind of face that disappointment of being told no several times. I'm hoping that I will be able to get myself out and paddle tomorrow. It also means having to find someone to help me get my boat on the car and off the car at home since Steve isn't here. We have a neighbor that I see him walking his dogs every day. So this morning I stopped him and just explained and asked if he'd be open. I've had 2 other neighbors help me get the boat off the car when Steve hasn't been home. So these are just new things that I'm navigating. And if I make it tomorrow, great. And if I don't, it's okay too. The final thing I want to talk to you about, and this really talks about how I think as highly sensitive people, we have this amazing ability to be of service and to connect people. And when we are authentic and really are okay with our needs, we have this way of really connecting people. And if you listen to the episode that I did with Azul Toronas, I can't remember what it's called, but I met Azul at Podcast Movement, and now I'm in the process of writing a book, and I'm in this group. And we are doing our sprint writing. So my commitment is to write 1,000 words every day. And I had posted in the group that what would really help me is to do For ADHDers, it's called body doubling. To me, it's co-regulation. But what I had asked for is, are people available to hop on a Zoom call? We connect at the beginning. We talk about what we want to work on. We turn off our camera. We turn off our mics. At a designated time, we check back in to see how we're doing. This has been one of the most powerful things. And when I first posted, somebody said, I can do a phone call with you. I explained that that really wasn't going to work, that having that containment of knowing that there's somebody there if I need them really is helpful. And what's happened is we've created this great group over the holidays, and people are connecting at different times, and it has been such a great source of support. I think we struggle with being, needing help, and it's a form of dependence. And the truth is, I do much better when I have that sense of containment. We have this ability to create these connections and provide support that most other people don't. Where are the places in your life where you've created safety for people just by your authenticity and how you show up and being vulnerable or being sensitive about what people need? We really can be the emotional glue that holds things together, even if we sometimes take flack if we're around people that don't quite get us. Are you able to see where your gifts are? And with this writing process, I went to write on Wednesday. We didn't have a group set. I had done my work for the day. I was really tired. I put my computer to sleep and I forgot to do my writing. And the book is taking on a little bit of a different course than what I had anticipated. And so the prompts that I wrote don't always work. And so the goal is to just sit down and write. But if I'm having to figure out what to write, it slows the process down. I wrote about 278 words and then I thought, that's it, I'm done. I'd written enough in the previous days that it didn't put me behind. The next day we had our writing group and I had this headache that was close to a migraine for the day. And I talked about what I was struggling with. The next day, which is today, I'm meeting online with someone and I'm going to formulate where I'm going to go from here and get a little structure. And I said, I'm not going to write today. I don't feel well. And again, having this flexibility to trust that I need to rest today. I canceled my last client. I just went to bed and I was in bed for pretty much the rest of the day until the headache went away. It would have been so easy to beat myself up. If I'm behind and I said I was going to write 1,000 words and I didn't, and I'm a failure. And it's like, I need to take care of myself. I need to take care of my body. I need to rest. And how many times have we learned to override and to drive ourselves beyond what we need to do because we have a task, an obligation, a duty, a responsibility? I don't know about you, but I am so driven by this sense of responsibility that I really learned to abandon myself. It can be helpful when things have to get done. But the kinder, gentler thing is to listen to our body and to trust that I will make up those words. It will all work out. If I take care of myself and I trust and I rest, things will work out. So my question to you is, are you able to listen to your body? Do you trust? Do you rest? I was just talking with another therapist this morning who was talking about some concerns about finances around her business because she's making changes and trusting that she will know what to do and when to do it and that the money will be there and to not get into that paralysis of fear. I had the same thing this month. I looked at my projected income for the month and it's below what I need to make. And I thought, what the heck is going on? Even though I was fearful, I trusted. And within the last week or two, things have really shifted. And now I'm making beyond what I need to make for the month. So it's easy for us to have these fears, but are you able to hold the fear and the trust that things will work out without getting stuck and paralyzed in fear? These are things that we all deal with, but I think that we don't know. I think that there's this belief that if we've done our healing, we will not react, we will not be fearful, we will not be emotional. We are human beings and we are going to have human reactions to things. So is there a place where you're judging yourself for having human reactions to things? I think that's about it. I'm about to wrap it up. If any of this resonated for you, I have a few spots open right now. If you want some extra support, I really would love to see HSPs learn to thrive in their qualities and traits. So many of us have wounding. It's a very challenging time in the world navigating a lot of these things. I'm a trained therapist. I do coaching so I can work with anybody in any part of the world. If you're interested, you can reach out to me at unapologeticallysensitive.com. I hope you're doing well. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.